Well, welcome. We are so excited about this event tonight. My name is Kate, and I'm the Vice President of McKinley Park Development Council, and we are bringing you this program tonight in cooperation with UIC Urban Planning. Alex, you go ahead and the slides, please. So we are here to talk about our neighborhood, which includes our beautiful park that we all know and love. Before we get going, a couple of things. So again, languages, Espanol, yeah, and Mandarin over here. All right. Washrooms, so bathrooms are over here if you need them. If you did not yet find the food is over here. Please help yourself. It is okay to eat during the presentation. We're going to have a short presentation, mostly by the students. And then after that, we're going to have some group activities. So we'll explain everything to you a little bit at a time. All right. So next. So this is what we're going to do tonight. We have an introduction. We'll go over some basics. The students are going to tell you what they have learned so far about McKinley Park. And then we have activities for you. They're going to share some ideas. And then the charrette is the part where we're actually going to move around the room in groups, but we'll get to that later. All right. So I want to thank everybody who helped us make this happen tonight. This is funded by a grant from Elevated Chicago. We are here at Aquinas Literacy Center, who have been so gracious as to offer us the space. And then the food is from La Placita, just down the street on 35th. And Cadino Bakery, which is a new bakery in the neighborhood, and hopefully they will have a storefront soon. I also want to thank our volunteers. Can I see all the volunteers from McKinley Park Development Council? Okay. And I also want to thank our interpreters, Linda and Luna. All right. So at this point, we're just going to have a brief introduction from each group. So I'm the Vice President of McKinley Park Development Council, and we are dedicated to bringing economic opportunity to McKinley Park. That means housing, that means jobs, that means small businesses, that means public safety, pedestrian safety, all things that we're going to talk about tonight. I'll let our folks from UIC introduce themselves.
Thanks, Kate. Welcome, everyone. I represent the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs, which houses these two graduates program. We have students, some of the students in this group come from the Master of City Design, and some students from our another graduate program for Master of Urban Planning. But most importantly, Institute for Policy and Civic Engagement, which is UIC's front face to Chicago and Illinois for civic engagement. And as some of you might recall, the very founding of this university, historically the campus has been downstate in Champaign-Urbana. The founding of UIC was about the University of Illinois system's commitment to the great city of Chicago and its neighborhoods. So this college and this institute represent that front side of university, engaging with community. And our purpose in doing this course was to come out and put the skill and knowledges and all the intellectual horsepower that is housed in this College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs to sort of come and teach our students how to work meaningfully with people and co-design neighborhoods which are central to the urban living. So I want to acknowledge Joe Horath, the director of IPSI, who has, Joe, yes, who has very kindly joined us. And he is both a sponsor of this event and also a big supporter of urban planning and city design in the college. And then I want to acknowledge our partnership with MPDC. Without the community partners, this would have been impossible to conceive and deliver. Universities usually find it very difficult to do this kind of work because unless we have committed partners who genuinely care for a place, it's very difficult for us to organize the logistics and outreach required for a program like this. So MPDC deserves our genuine appreciation and thanks for making it happen. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, from the students' perspective, we have a professional, a global, a world-class global firm with one of the offices in Chicago called Design Workshop. These guys are expensive. So if we were to hire them on an hourly basis, you guys would be putting a lot of money on the table. So you guys lucky that these, MPDC as both as, being responsible members of the human society and species, and also out of their professional ethics decided to partner with us and giving their time pro bono, both for the benefit of students and the community. So we want to give a big hand to our important partners. And I will now hand it over to Manisha Cole, who represents Design Workshop, to say a few words.
Thank you, Sanjeev. We're not expensive. And that was just for the record. And my name is Manisha Cole. I am a landscape architect and principal with Design Workshop in Chicago. Design Workshop is a 160 plus firm that is nationwide and does projects in almost every state in the United States for planning, landscape architecture, and strategic services. And we really create places for people, and people like you, like us. And at the core of our belief is like when we bring together concerns of economics, of community, of art, and of environment together, we create places for people, places that have timeless importance in the lives of people and in communities as we go forward. So Design Workshop is really happy to partner with UIC and MPDC to really help the Charrette process in this whole scheme of things that you're seeing this evening tonight. So thank you for allowing us to be partners in this process.
All right. So a little bit about how we got here. Some of you may be familiar with McKinley Park Development Council, and some of you may not. We're a group of volunteers that does a lot of things behind the scenes in the neighborhood, formed about 5 years ago. One of the biggest projects to date is the McKinley Park Neighborhood Plan, which some of you might have been a part of. You may remember there's about 2 years of work by the community to build that plan. It's our first attempt to say, this is what the neighborhood wants. And it has very broad categories of things that the neighborhood wants. Like, for example, we have a diverse population and we want to grow in a way that allows everyone to stay here. So big goals. That plan was developed before the pandemic. It was finally approved by CMAP during the pandemic, but it took a little while for us to get to a point where we could actually engage the community again to start narrowing it down and actually doing some of the things in that plan. And I don't want to bore you with alphabet soup, but CMAP is the Chicago, it is in charge of Chicago Metropolitan Planning. So that's a local authority that, first off, when they say something's all right, hopefully that means they can help us find someone to pay for it. There's a lot more to it than that, but in terms of like what you as residents need to know, having that blessing is a really big deal because it makes it a little more official. So hopefully it's easier for us to get somewhere with it. All right. So then we received a grant from Elevated Chicago about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, to do some work, some of the work that you're seeing tonight about what should our neighborhood look like. And on the one hand, we are very grateful for that grant. And on the other hand, it was still not enough to hire a professional planner. So we approached UIC and said, hey, you guys have graduate students, right? They work for tacos, right? And they have done far, far more far more than we expected in this project, and we are so grateful to have them. So please say thank you to them as you go throughout this evening. Because they are going to help us now have pictures and drawings that we can approach our local officials with and say, this is what our community wants. All right. And with that, I'm going to turn the rest of the evening over to the students.
Thank you, Kate. So kind of building off of the previous planning activities that have happened in the neighborhood, as Kate was outlining, kind of something came out of that is identifying key areas where interventions could take place. And so the 3 sites that our studio has been tasked with exploring are the Orange Line L station, the former foundry on the other side of the rail tracks, and then 35th Street corridor from Paulina to Western, and looking at kind of all those storefronts, infrastructure, everything that comes with that. So each of these sites presents both unique opportunities as well as unique challenges. And so we're trying to take that into account as we delve into the sites, and something that we'll want to hear more from you about as we shift into the activities we have planned. So before delving into the specific sites, we wanted to understand more about the community makeup at large. So some basic demographics that we saw is that McKinley Park has a slightly lower median income than Chicago as a whole. And then also the predominance of the majority Hispanic population in the neighborhood, as well as the fast rising Asian community that is here. So it's a very diverse community, which we needed to take into account as we move forward with the project. So shifting from kind of general demographics to more specific topics, we wanted to, when looking at housing, we wanted to set out with a goal to ensure that we preserve housing that is affordable for all residents, and that any new developments and any new units that come in are appropriate, considering the context, both aesthetic and cultural, as well as with relation to pricing. Part of the reason why we wanted to set that from the outset is that something we knew coming in is that housing affordability is a concern. As you can see in the last 5 years, the number of higher rental units within the community has risen dramatically, more than 12%. And so we needed to make sure that we can stem that and ensure that residents that are currently here can stay here. Along with that, we know that McKinley Park has higher occupancy than the rest of Chicago. And in those housing units, on average, there are more people per average than Chicago. And additionally, we know there's a higher ownership rate in the city, significantly more than Chicago's. So shifting from housing to general connectivity with the rest of the city. We want to ensure that there's connectivity for all residents in all modes, multimodal accessibility, to ensure that people can travel safely and freely between communities, and that we can improve the pedestrian experience by incorporating more nature and art into the experience. So looking more at kind of that connectivity piece, another thing that we noticed that ties into kind of economics of business as well is that a vast majority, a wide majority of people who live in McKinley Park travel outside of the neighborhood for their work. And so there's not necessarily a lot of options for residents who live here to work directly in here, as a lot of that commuting happens towards downtown, towards the Loop area on its whole. Next, we wanted to shift to kind of the natural assets that are present. Obviously, we all know McKinley Park. We also want to look at tree cover, since it's kind of more of neighborhood foliage. And you can see there's significant foliage along many streets, but there are some kind of gaps. And then also looking at equitable access to parks. McKinley Park is obviously massive and large, but it's located in the southwest corner of the neighborhood. And so kind of the neighborhood park aspect of that, is there something that could be introduced as we're looking through the neighborhood. Along with that, considering the built environment and water, as rising temperatures and increasing precipitation levels can be a threat to not just places right along the water, but also inland neighborhoods. So we looked at the built environment and impervious surfaces and how that can contribute to water pooling, or an increased risk of water pooling moving into the future, as something to consider when thinking about new interventions that could be proposed. Next, zooming kind of into our key corridor, which is 35th Street, we wanted to ensure that we created a vibrant, community-oriented street that kind of brings out the cultural makeup of the neighborhood while extending the beauty that is present in the namesake park and ensuring that it is equitable and accessible for all residents. And then moving into kind of a governmental piece, a technical piece, one thing that we've heard about already in our community engagement, something that we knew coming in, is that the current land use and zoning are kind of at odds. So as you can see on this top map, along 35th Street, there's a plethora of uses that are currently at play, a lot of them grandfathered in. However, due to zoning changes, currently most of 35th Street is zoned for purely residential. So that means that anytime a new development happens there, it's constrained to only be residential, which can be at odds when you want to have more small businesses and introduce those types of lively hangout spaces and whatnot. Just something we need to consider as we progress. And then lastly, we kind of wanted to look at the not just these statistics, but we wanted to try to get kind of an idea of what the core character and cultural landmarks in the neighborhood currently are, and see if that matches up with the actual demographic makeup and the cultural values of the community. So we highlighted some of those key assets related to art, small business, retail, things of that nature. But when looking at all of these numbers, these are kind of just statistics. It doesn't give us an idea of what the lived experience is in the community, which is why we started a campaign to kind of go out and talk to people who live here, work here, recreate here, to get an idea of what that's like. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Good evening, everyone. As Chuck mentioned, I'm Alicia. The next phase of our project, we focused on collecting the opinions and suggestions from the community members on how they would like to improve the 3 sites. We met with over 250 residents by hosting pop-ups and open houses throughout the community, as you can see here. During our conversations with community members, we collected key words that community members used to identify McKinley Park. The words we heard the most were housing, culture, and diversity. We also conducted a survey with specific questions to help us identify how the community would like to see change in McKinley Park. As you can see from our first question, we asked, what are the best ways to make McKinley Park more comfortable to walk and bike? Our the best outcomes that we received were bike lanes, safer streets and improved lighting, public art, trees, and street repair. Secondly, we asked, what would you like to see more of near the 35th Archer Orange Line stop? The top 3 were dining and shopping, public spaces, green space, and commuter stops, better pedestrian access to train. Additionally, we asked, what are the best ways to beautify McKinley Park? Our top runner-ups were fill vacant storefronts, street landscaping, and public art. We also held a poll asking community members, what do they want to see on 35th Street? From the survey, you could see our top 3 answers were small businesses, places to hang out, park, green space. We also wanted to know, if funding was available, what projects would you like to invest in the neighborhood? Our runner-ups were street repair and beautification, events and programming, and lastly, creation of park or plaza space. We also asked, what idea do you have that we did not include in our survey? Those answers were attracting small businesses, farmers market, live music and festivals, bike infrastructure, more waste bins, and sport and classes for all ages. So now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Alexandria.
So taking what we learned from our original research and then from community engagement, we developed 6 really big picture design concepts that are going to sort of influence what we produce and show you all on June 10th. So before I get into this, in this section, I am going to show you some preliminary design ideas, and I'm going to ask for your first reactions. So there's 2 methods that you can react to that. If you'd prefer to do it on your phone, there will be a link available on the screen that you can type in. If you'd prefer to do it on paper, there are index cards on the table. And then for anybody who wants to share something that maybe isn't built into that online survey, please feel free to write something on the index cards, leave it on the table. We'll come around and pick it up after the presentation. So then turning back towards these concepts, the first is that feeling of a small town main street. And that's something that came up when we asked several members of the community to describe a place that they love, somewhere that they really enjoy spending time, and that idea came up several times. The next is the idea of a cultural district, somewhere with spaces for public art and performance, and where people also feel that their own culture is represented. Next is the idea of extending the park, the natural beauty and landscape of the park, and making that throughout the entire neighborhood so that you have that sensation of being, in trees and in nature wherever you are. The next is adding new affordable units and finding opportunities to add more housing within the neighborhood without changing the neighborhood's character. The next is flexible community spaces that can serve a variety of purposes and that work all 4 seasons. And the final is preserving the distinct architectural culture of the neighborhood. So the first idea shown here is at the intersection of 35th and Paulina. And we're calling it the Gateway, or the Big Hello. And it's sort of the entrance point into McKinley Park. Thinking about McKinley Park's position in the city as this center location, it's well connected to other neighborhoods and to the loop. And thinking about this being a really inviting place for people to spend time and to shop in McKinley Park, both residents of the neighborhood and people who might want to come and visit. So you see some examples of programming that are in the bubbles around the image. So some of those ideas include opportunities to shut the street from traffic on certain days to hold festivals, a big marker indicating that you're entering McKinley Park, something special that reflects the neighborhood, sidewalk cafes for restaurants, and other features like that. The next one, sorry. So the next is at the site of the clock tower, which we think is such an iconic part of McKinley Park. We also heard from people that they feel that the manufacturing district is an asset in the neighborhood that isn't being fully utilized. And so we thought about how to kind of reimagine that space, make it more of a destination. And so we thought about having a community cultural center within the clock tower, holding classes for people of all ages, including classes in things like woodworking and metal forging that might be a connection into industry that exists in the neighborhood. It's also an opportunity for a farmer's market here, as well as green roofs and spaces for local artists to display their work and performances and things like that. The final design that we have for you today is located at that site that we mentioned near the 35th and Archer Orange line on Levitt. So a few things that we have here are some residential developments. Those will be, affordable for people who live in the neighborhood, who might want to live close to the train, close to businesses. They might want to live in a building that has some businesses on the first floor or is near buildings that have businesses on the first floor. One idea that we have here is a commuter cafe and bar. So something located near the train where you can get a cup of coffee in the morning and then stop by on your way home from work and get a drink, visit with people in the neighborhood, meet people, also would draw people to the neighborhood. Also have some ideas for community green spaces and green paths. So here is that opportunity for you all to share your thoughts, just first reactions, anything that comes to mind. So above and beyond this, if you have questions about any of the programming or you want to discuss any of this, you can feel free to approach any of us at the stations and we're happy to talk through. Can you click the link? It's a link in the slide. Click, it's on the slide. It's where it says on your phone. Oh yeah. Okay, go. So if anybody's still trying to vote, the number is 1028-0325. So we'll do another 30 seconds here, and then anything else that comes to you, if you want to leave it on the comment cards, please do. Oh yeah, so it's menti.com, and then the number is 1028. You go back to the slides. 1028-0325. So we'll stay here another 10-15 seconds. Yes, sir. Yeah, so it's menti.com, 1028-0325. Everybody's voting, yeah, that's what's on the screen. Yeah. Cool. So we can roll. Okay, great. So yeah, like I said, anything else that comes to mind with any of that, feel free to follow up with us. I thought you were all going to be harder on us, but I'm happy that it went that way and that you like it. So you can go to the next slide. So I just want to transition now into the activities. I just want to make sure that we stay on track with timing. So, you know, kind of thinking about the key themes that we just presented, there's really three main things that we're trying to learn about through these stations, and that is housing, transit, and how you get around, and then 35th Street and sort of how that corridor is working or not working for you. So thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to pass this over to Charrette from Design Workshop, who's going to do just a quick refresher on how these stations are going to work, and then we'll get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Good evening, McKinley Park neighbors. Thanks so much for coming out. As you can see, the students have been engaged in a lot of work over the last several weeks to understand your community and to put forth some ideas that respond to the challenges and opportunities that this neighborhood presents. And the team here is just really excited to get you involved in the conversation, to engage you in some hands-on activities, to ultimately steer the direction of the work that they do. You know, the research, the initial concepts are all great, but the real meaningful work comes when you're able to contribute your ideas and inform their next steps. So what we're going to do over the next hour is involve you in some of the conversations that this team is having around topics like housing, around topics like how to activate the neighborhood further, and conversations around transportation and the future that holds for McKinley Park. So if you could just head to the next slide, please. There we go. So as you see here, we have 3 stations around the room, and each is focused on one of those different topics. And you'll be spending 20 minutes at each of these stations over the course of the next hour. So housing transit in third place. And then after that, those 3 20-minute segments will bring everyone back together to just hear a little bit more about the conversations that you had and hear what some of your key takeaways were about the work that's been done so far. What we're going to remind you of, if you could actually head to that last slide again, please. You received 2 things on your way in here today. The first is this green passport, and the second was one of these index cards. Hopefully you've had a chance over the last half hour or so to put some of your thoughts about the 3 things you're most interested in discussing tonight on this index card. The team is really eager to read those and hear what you have to say. So we encourage you to do that if you haven't already. The second being this green passport here. If you open this up, you'll see that you have 3 stations that you're about to embark on listed on the side here. What we'd love for you to do at each of these stations is just grab one of those gem stickers, and the folks facilitating these stations and manning them are going to be able to show you what those are. What you want to do is put one on each of these boxes after you've had the chance to engage with that station. And then we encourage you to take the passport home with you. Keep yourself involved in the process and the work that the studio is doing. And this will be a great opportunity to keep that conversation going. Go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. So in just a moment, we're going to break you all out into these individual groups, and you're each going to start at a station and then rotate to the next 2. So we've broken it up in advance just to make things a little bit cleaner and more organized. And we want you to take a look at the sticker that is on your name tag. There's 3 colors here. For English speakers, those with the green sticker, you'll be starting at the transit station. And that's the station directly at the back of the room over here. You can see the folks with their arms up, absolutely. Those with a blue dot on your name tag, you can head to the 3rd place station, which is the second one that you can see over in the corner of the room right over there. And those with the yellow sticker, you'll head to the housing station right over here. All right. For those who are Spanish speaking, we are asking that you start at the 3rd place station, which is the one right in the middle there. That will have the interpreter there for you. And if there are any Mandarin speakers who have come in, you can start right here at the housing station. We'll have our interpreter there as well. And then, of course, we do have a kids station at the back here where we'd love for the kids to keep engaging with some of the activities there, some of which are relative to the conversations we're having today. Everybody's voice is welcome. And with that, I think we are going to break out now. So we're looking at 7:20 at this moment. We will break into our groups. You can head right to your stations. We'll let you know when 20 minutes have passed and